The massive Murian diplomatic vessel emerged from hyperspace with practiced precision. Commander Xerix stood on the bridge, reviewing Earth's file one last time. Just another noisy civilization needing to be silenced. Standard procedure for the coalition of evolved species. His species had quieted hundreds of worlds before, and Earth seemed unremarkable. Fractious, primitive, technologically inconsistent. 2 days of shows of force, then acceptance of terms. Simple. The first human broadcast they intercepted wasn't from any government. It was from a rogue coalition of civilians and military personnel who had decoded the Murian transmissions. Their message was neither diplomatic nor frightened. "We know why you're here. We suggest you run." Xerix dismissed the warning. The humans would learn respect soon enough. He ordered the first demonstration. The complete neutralization of an uninhabited moon. As the moon shattered, Xerix waited for the panic, the pleas for mercy. Instead, while official channels filled with diplomatic double-talk, Murian sensors detected something unexpected. Hundreds of small craft launching from hidden bases across Earth, heading directly toward the coalition fleet. "Impossible," Xerix muttered as the first human ships, cobbled together from primitive materials and what appeared to be partially understood alien tech, slammed into his support vessels using kamikaze tactics no spacefaring race had employed in millennia. They're supposed to be afraid. The Murian defense grid struggled to target the small, erratic human vessels. Their flight patterns defied logical prediction algorithms. They zigged when they should have zagged, accelerated when they should have decelerated. 3 support ships were already crippled, their hulls breached by explosives that shouldn't have penetrated their shields. Analysis, Xerix demanded from his tactical officer. The human craft appear to be improvised. "Commander, our scanners detect conventional propulsion systems modified with elements of technology that resembles outdated Centauri design. They shouldn't be functional, yet." The officer's voice trailed off as another support ship reported critical damage. Xerix's 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display. The human attack wasn't just surprising. It was coordinated. Different craft using different techniques, striking in waves precisely timed to exploit the recharge cycles of Murian defense systems. How could they possibly know those timings? "Open a channel to Coalition High Command," Xerix ordered. "Priority Alpha." "Channel open, Commander." "This is Commander Xerix of the Silencing Fleet. Earth situation assessment requires immediate revision. Request tactical reinforcement and updated intelligence profile. These humans are..." He paused, searching for the right word. "Anomalous." On the view screen, a small human craft spiraled toward the command ship, trailing smoke and debris. Murian point defense systems tracked it, calculating its trajectory for optimal interception. At the last possible moment, the craft altered course in a way that violated its own structural limitations, somehow absorbing the stress that should have torn it apart. It slipped past the defense grid and impacted against the command ship's sensor array. Secondary explosions cascaded across the array. Warning klaxons blared across the bridge. "Sensor grid compromised," reported the systems officer. "We're flying blind in sectors 7 through 13. "How did they know?" whispered Xerix. "How did they know exactly where to hit us?" His communication officer turned from her station, all 3 of her facial membranes pulsing with anxiety. "Commander, we're receiving thousands of transmissions from Earth now. Not just from governments or military installations. From everywhere. Civilian broadcasts, scientific facilities, entertainment networks." She paused. "They're all sending the same message, in our language, on our secure frequencies." "What message?" demanded Xerix. The officer's voice trembled. "It says, 'That was just to get your attention. Now run.'" Xerix stared at the tactical display, where dozens more human craft were already accelerating toward his damaged fleet. For the first time in his long career of silencing worlds, he felt a chill of genuine uncertainty. Dr. Elena Reyes hadn't slept in 3 days. former head of quantum physics at MIT. Now she led a global team of scientists working in a repurposed mineshaft. On her screens, the wreckage of a Murian scout ship arrived piece by piece, transported by military helicopters. Their propulsion system operates on principles we theorized but couldn't prove, she explained to General Williams as her team swarmed over alien components. But look at this. Their computer systems are almost predictable. Sequential thinking. No redundancies. The general peered at the alien technology, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic display. Can we exploit that? We already are, Rise replied, leading him to another section where engineers were adapting salvaged components. They think linearly. We don't. Their systems anticipate logical responses. Humanity excels at being illogical. Across the chamber, a young physicist was connecting Murian power cells to what looked like modified commercial electronics. The combination shouldn't have worked. The technologies were centuries apart in development. Yet the hybrid device hummed to life, projecting a field that matched the frequency signature of Murian shield systems. Is that what I think it is? Asked Williams. A skeleton key. Rise nodded. Their shields follow predictable modulation patterns. We can't match their power, but we can create harmonic disruptions that open windows in their defenses. 3-second gaps. Small, but enough. Across the globe, humanity's response defied the coalition's expectations. Instead of centralizing defense, Earth fragmented into thousands of resistance cells. When the Murians destroyed Washington, D.C., operations continued without pause. When they targeted Beijing, submarine-based command centers took over seamlessly. Commander John Chen studied the latest battle reports in his mobile headquarters, a converted oil tanker in the middle of the Pacific. His multinational naval task force had just destroyed another Murian landing party using tactics borrowed from ancient Chinese naval warfare, updated with modern technology and unpredictable variations. They expect us to retreat when outgunned, he told his officers. So we advance. They expect us to protect population centers. So we evacuate and turn our cities into traps. They expect us to follow military doctrine. So we use strategies from our history, our literature, even our entertainment. His communication officer handed him a tablet. Sir, Dr. Rice's team has delivered new countermeasures against their telepathic specialists. Chen examined the designs. Simple headgear made from common materials configured to generate interference patterns against the Nzeri's mental attacks. Elegant in their simplicity, impossible to predict unless you understood human creativity. Mass-produce these immediately, he ordered. Prioritize distribution to civilian resistance groups. Outside, the sky burned as orbital bombardment continued. Yet for every city destroyed, a dozen underground facilities continued working. For every military base eliminated, 100 improvised workshops sprang up in basements, warehouses, and abandoned malls. From his command ship orbiting Earth, Xerix watched in growing horror as his carefully planned conquest unraveled. The humans were adapting their weapons and tactics faster than coalition forces could respond. His fleet had lost 17 vessels in just over a week, an unprecedented casualty rate for a silencing operation. They're not fighting by any recognizable doctrine, he reported to Coalition High Command. They're adapting too quickly. Their resistance should be collapsing as we destroy their infrastructure, but it's only becoming more effective. Request immediate reinforcements. The response came swiftly. Request approved. Full Coalition War Council activated. Hold position and continue containment operations. Primary objective modified. Capture intact human specimens and technology for analysis. We must understand how they're achieving these results. Xerix acknowledged the orders, but a rare feeling of doubt crept into his mind. The Coalition had never needed to study a target species before. They'd never encountered one that required such measures. As if to underscore his concerns, 3 more human craft appeared on sensors, approaching with that same erratic, unpredictable pattern that defied targeting systems. But these were different, larger, and incorporating elements of Murian design that his engineers insisted couldn't possibly have been integrated so quickly. Impossible, he muttered. But the word was beginning to lose meaning where humans were concerned. The Coalition's response arrived with apocalyptic intent. 12 specialist combat species, each evolved for different aspects of warfare, deployed in Earth's orbit. The Volith, silicon-based giants whose ships could crack planetary crusts. The Nzari, with their horrifying ability to project fear directly into enemy minds. The Keldrath, whose temporal technology could slow enemy reactions to a crawl. From his command platform on the Nzari flagship, Admiral Threll surveyed the assembled armada. Never in Coalition history had such force been directed at a single world, let alone one so technologically primitive. It spoke volumes about how badly the Murians had underestimated this species. "Begin the synchronized bombardment," Threll ordered. "Target their remaining power grids and communication hubs first. Then military installations, standard silencing protocol." Massive energy weapons charged across the fleet, aimed at Earth's surface. The first salvos fired, lancing down through the atmosphere with enough power to vaporize cities. But something unexpected happened. From hidden bases across Earth, thousands of mirrors unfurled in precise positions. When the Coalition began their orbital bombardment, these mirrors redirected the energy weapons back at the attackers. Primitive, improvised, and devastating in its simplicity. Impossible. Threll roared as 3 capital ships exploded, caught in their own weapons fire. "They're using reflective surfaces. That's Stone Age technology." His tactical officer's voice trembled. "Sir, they've precisely calculated the reflection angles. They're not just blocking our beams, they're focusing them back on our shield vulnerabilities." On the ground, the situation grew stranger. Reports flooded in from landing parties across Earth's surface. Human civilians began wearing elaborate headgear made of common materials that somehow blocked Nzari telepathic attacks. Captured Coalition soldiers reported interrogation techniques that exploited their species' specific psychological weaknesses, knowledge humans couldn't possibly possess. In his underground command center, Commander Chen received the latest intelligence from their captured Nzari scout. "They expected us to panic," he told his officers. "They expected us to be paralyzed by their psychic attacks. But fear is an old companion of humanity. We've been facing extinction-level threats since we huddled in caves." Dr. Reyes joined the briefing via secure holographic link. The Nzari telepathic technology operates on principles similar to our own experimental neural interfaces. My team has developed countermeasures using modified consumer electronics. We're distributing the design globally. "And the Keldrath temporal weapons?" Chen asked. "More complicated," Reyes admitted. "But they're targeting our neurological reaction times. We've found that certain stimulants, combined with visual training similar to what we use for fighter pilots, can compensate partially. It's not perfect, but it helps." Above Earth, Admiral Threll struggled to comprehend the tactical data flowing in. Coalition landing forces reported ambushes using hybrid weapons, human firearms loaded with ammunition derived from Coalition energy technology. Urban combat units found themselves trapped in buildings rigged with explosives that incorporated salvaged alien power cells. Most disturbing were reports of humans communicating their tactics using methods undetectable to Coalition surveillance, sometimes as simple as handwritten notes, other times using encrypted signals that mimicked natural Earth phenomena. "They're not just fighting back," Xerix explained to the War Council. His reputation now partially rehabilitated as other species encountered the same difficulties he had reported. "They're studying us, learning from us, evolving their tactics with each engagement." The Volith commander slammed his crystalline fist against the table. "This is unacceptable. They are primitive mammals. How are they adapting so quickly?" "Because," Xerix said quietly, "they're not treating this as a defense. They're treating it as an opportunity." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't proceeding like any silencing operation in Coalition history. The humans weren't just trying to survive. They were treating the invasion as an accelerated evolution event, absorbing and adapting coalition technology at an unprecedented rate. "We need to change strategies," Threll finally acknowledged. "Full suppression protocol. We can't allow this to continue." 6 months of brutal conflict left Earth scared but unbroken. Major cities lay in ruins, yet human resistance only intensified. Coalition forces controlled the skies, but found themselves mired in ground combat against an enemy that refused to follow conventional patterns of defeat. The Keldrath General T. Voss surveyed the smoking ruins of what had once been Paris. His temporal distortion units had reduced the city's defenders to slow-motion targets, yet somehow they had managed to evacuate most civilians before the attack. Intelligence had failed again. The humans had known they were coming. "Status report," he demanded of his field commander. "The city is secure, General. But we found something unusual in the underground tunnels. The humans appear to have been using them as manufacturing facilities." "Manufacturing what?" "That's the strange part, sir. They weren't making weapons. They were producing some kind of stasis pods, thousands of them. Most were already gone before we arrived." Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, far from the heaviest fighting, Dr. Rice led humanity's most audacious project. The vast chamber, carved into the bedrock and shielded from orbital detection by ingenious combinations of Earth materials and salvaged alien tech, hummed with activity. Engineers worked on sleek vessels unlike anything humanity had built before, ships designed not for war, but for escape. "Project Diaspora isn't about winning this war," she explained to the assembled world leaders on secure channels. "It's about ensuring they lose the next one." The holographic faces of presidents, prime ministers, and generals, many broadcasting from hidden bunkers or mobile command centers, looked back at her with expressions ranging from hope to skepticism. "Show them," urged Commander Chen, standing at her side. Rice nodded to her team. The central display activated, showing a three-dimensional map of nearby star systems. "We've reverse-engineered their FTL technology," she explained, "but we've improved it. Their systems are optimized for efficiency and predictability. Ours sacrifice some efficiency for unpredictability and range." She highlighted several points on the map. "These are our initial settlement targets. Systems the Coalition considers worthless or haven't fully explored. Each Exodus ship carries the seeds of a new colony, genetic samples, cultural archives, and volunteers with specific skills." "And what of those who remain?" asked the president of the African Union, her face illuminated by firelight in her hidden mountain base. "They continue the fight," Chen answered, "not to win, but to distract. Every day we keep the Coalition occupied here is another day for our ships to get farther away, another day for our colonies to establish themselves. But most importantly," Rice added, "each ship carries a quantum communication array. No matter how far apart our colonies spread, they'll remain in constant contact. What one learns, all learn. What one develops, all develop." The first Exodus ships launched during a massive surface battle in the Pacific, a sacrifice play that cost thousands of human lives but created a sensor blind spot. Military vessels engaged Coalition forces in a desperate attack that appeared suicidal but served a greater purpose. By the time the Coalition detected the unusual energy signatures, hundreds of ships had already vanished into deep space. In orbit, Admiral Threll received the disturbing reports. "What do you mean, civilian ships? Where could they possibly go?" "Unknown, Admiral," his sensor officer replied. "They're using some modified version of our own FTL technology. Their jump signatures don't match any known pattern." Before Threll could respond, alerts blared across the command deck. Multiple launches detected from the southern polar region. Hundreds of vessels. Threll stared at the tactical display in disbelief as swarms of small human ships accelerated away from Earth, executing FTL jumps far closer to the planet than Coalition safety protocols allowed. "Intercept them," he ordered. But it was already too late. By the time Coalition forces pinpointed the Antarctic launch facility, most of the ships had already disappeared into the void. When they finally fought their way through the surprisingly fierce defenses to reach the facility, they found only empty hangars and a simple message carved into the ice. "We are everywhere now." The Coalition diverted massive resources to hunting down the human Exodus ships. Superior technology and established networks should have made it a simple cleanup operation. It wasn't. Captain Nilara of the Keldrath pursuit vessel, Temporal Wind, slammed her fist against the navigation console. Her quarry, a mid-sized human transport, had just pulled another impossible maneuver, skimming the chromosphere of a red giant star to slingshot away at a velocity her ship couldn't match without burning out its engines. "That's the third one this cycle," her first officer noted. "They're learning our pursuit protocols faster than we can update them." Human vessels demonstrated jump patterns that defied predictability. They used stellar phenomena in ways no species had considered, skimming gas giants to gain gravitational boosts, hiding in radiation belts that should have been lethal, executing FTL jumps dangerously close to stellar bodies. "They're not even using consistent techniques," Nilara observed. "Each ship seems to have its own approach, its own tactics. There's no pattern to exploit." Back on Earth, Commander Chen, now leading Earth's last major fleet, prepared for what the Coalition expected to be humanity's final desperate stand. His forces had been pushed back to the southern Atlantic, a ragtag assembly of vessels ranging from modified aircraft carriers to improvised submersibles equipped with salvaged alien technology. What the Coalition didn't know was that Operation Thunderclap wasn't a last stand at all. It was a calculated theft. Chen's forces struck 12 Coalition command ships simultaneously, not to destroy them but to extract something far more valuable: navigation data and communication protocols. The cost would be enormous, thousands of human lives, but the gain would change everything. "Remember," Chen told his officers in their final briefing aboard the retrofitted carrier, "this isn't about winning today's battle. It's about giving our people out there the tools they need to win tomorrow's war." The attack commenced at dawn. Human forces struck with a fury that surprised even the battle-hardened Coalition commanders. Ships that should have had no chance against Coalition vessels fought with suicidal determination, focusing fire on communication arrays and navigation centers rather than weapons or engines. In deep space, the escaping human vessels implemented the stolen data with disturbing creativity as it reached them through quantum communicators. They broadcast false distress signals mimicking different Coalition species. They left debris fields suggesting their destruction while the actual ships slipped away. Some even disguised themselves as Coalition patrol vessels, complete with falsified identification codes. "They're not just running," reported a frustrated Volith captain after losing a human ship in an asteroid field. "They're playing with us, learning our weaknesses with each encounter." Admiral Threll reviewed the mounting reports of failed pursuit operations with growing concern. "How many have we intercepted?" 217 confirmed destructions, his intelligence officer replied. "But estimated launches now exceed 2,000. 2,000? Threll's voice rose in disbelief. "How is that possible? They shouldn't have had the resources or time to build so many ships." Meanwhile, on conquered Earth, the remaining human population fought with such ferocity that holding territory required more resources than the Coalition had anticipated. Occupation forces found themselves targets of weapons cobbled together from their own discarded technology, transformed in ways their engineers insisted weren't possible. What puzzled Coalition leadership most was that human resistance grew more sophisticated rather than less as their infrastructure was destroyed. Primitive mechanical traps gave way to advanced energy weapons. Crude radio communications evolved into unbreakable quantum-entangled transmitters. It was as if the humans on Earth were somehow benefiting from knowledge they couldn't possibly possess, knowledge that seemed to be flowing back to them from their escaped brethren already scattered across the stars. In his command center buried deep beneath the Antarctic ice, the one the Coalition had found was merely a decoy. General Williams received the latest transmission from the colonies via quantum communicator. He smiled grimly at the data. "It's working," he told his staff. "The colonies are already sending back improvements. Now we just need to hold out a little longer." 2 years into what was supposed to be a simple silencing operation, the Coalition faced an unprecedented situation. 7 member species had withdrawn from the campaign, citing unsustainable losses and resource depletion. Earth was largely under control, but the cost of maintaining that control drained military resources from other Coalition operations. High Commander Vrax of the Volith paced the crystalline floor of the Coalition Security Council chamber, his silicon-based body reflecting light in agitation. This was supposed to be a routine operation. Now it threatens the stability of the entire Coalition. Around the table, representatives of the remaining species studied the latest intelligence reports with growing concern. The first confirmed reports of human colonies had arrived from the fringes of Coalition space. Unlike refugee settlements, these were organized, purposeful communities, each specialized in different aspects of development. Some focused on propulsion technology, others on weapons, communications, or agriculture adapted to alien environments. Most troubling, continued the Murian representative, Commander Xerix, is the evidence that these scattered colonies somehow coordinate their efforts despite being separated by vast distances. Our scientists insist their quantum communication technology shouldn't be possible with their level of development. They shouldn't have FTL capability either, countered the Nzari diplomat. Yet here we are. A holographic display activated in the center of the chamber, showing footage from a Coalition outpost in the Cygnus sector. The recording showed a human fleet appearing without warning, using ships that incorporated technology from 3 different Coalition species. They neutralized the station's defenses with precision strikes, downloaded its entire database, and vanished before reinforcements arrived. This wasn't a random attack, Xerix explained. They targeted specific technological data. The next day, a similar raid hit a biological research station in the Eridani sector. Then a weapons development facility near Ta City. They're shopping, Vrax realized, taking exactly what they need. Precisely, Xerix nodded. These humans are implementing a strategy no species has attempted before. Each colony develops specialized knowledge, then shares it with all others. They're evolving faster in exile than they ever did on their own world. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The scattered human colonies weren't just trying to survive. They were building something new, something distributed across dozens of star systems. The Keldrath representative broke the silence. What about the temporal containment option? We could isolate Earth in a stasis field. Too late, Vrax responded. That might have worked before they scattered. Now, he gestured to the star map showing confirmed and suspected human colony locations. We would need to find and neutralize every colony simultaneously. Otherwise, the survivors would simply rebuild. On a distant world classified as uninhabitable by Coalition standards, Dr. Elena Reyes stood on a ridge overlooking humanity's first major colony. Below her, prefabricated structures housed 10,000 colonists, protected from the harsh atmosphere by shields adapted from Coalition technology. Nearby, massive greenhouses using genetically modified earth plants adapted to local soil conditions were already producing their second harvest. Her communication officer approached with a tablet. The quantum network just received confirmation. The Centauri colony's raid was successful. They've acquired the biological data needed for atmospheric modification. Reyes nodded. Transmit it to all colonies immediately. Priority to the Ta City and Epsilon Indi settlements. Their atmospheric conditions are most similar. She turned her attention to the sprawling research complex where engineers worked on the next generation of hybrid ships, vessels that combined Coalition technology with innovative human designs. The first true counteroffensive was taking shape, not as a massive military force, but as thousands of small, decisive strikes across Coalition space. We're not just running anymore, she told her officer. It's time to show them what humanity does best. Adapt, the young woman asked. That too, Rice smiled. But I was thinking of something else. We're very, very good at turning the tables. 5 years after Earth's invasion, the Coalition's mistake became painfully clear. They had scattered humanity across the stars, and in doing so, had created something unprecedented. A species that evolved not through natural selection, but through deliberate adaptation and technological assimilation. Admiral Threll's flagship drifted powerless in the aftermath of the latest human attack. Through the viewport, he watched the retreating human vessels, sleek, asymmetrical ships that bore little resemblance to their cobbled-together predecessors from the early war. These craft moved with uncanny coordination, using attack patterns that seemed to anticipate every Coalition countermeasure. Damage report, he demanded, though he already knew the answer. Propulsion offline. Weapons at 17% capacity. Communications limited to short range only, his first officer replied. They targeted our systems with surgical precision, Admiral, as if they knew exactly where to hit us. They did, Threll realized. Somehow, they knew. Human colonies no longer hid in remote systems. They established fortified outposts at strategic locations, each specializing in different aspects of warfare or technology. Ships of hybrid design, combining Coalition technology with human innovation, struck without warning and disappeared before counterattacks could be mounted. The most alarming development came from the Andromeda Arm, where a human fleet commanded by Admiral Chen, long thought dead after Operation Thunderclap, emerged with vessels incorporating technology from species unknown to the Coalition. Intelligence suggested humans had contacted civilizations outside Coalition influence and formed alliances based on shared opposition to Coalition expansion. They're not just fighting us anymore, Xerix explained to the Emergency War Council. They're undermining our entire position in the galaxy. 3 non-Coalition species have already signed mutual defense pacts with human colonies. How? Demanded Vrax. Why would any rational species ally with these primitives? Because, Xerix said quietly, we've demonstrated that the Coalition silences emerging civilizations. These humans have positioned themselves as defenders against our oppression. And after our costly failure to silence Earth, our reputation for invincibility is shattered. Dr. Reyes, now leading what humans called the Diaspora Council, coordinated the scattered colonies' efforts from her headquarters on the first colony world. Under her guidance, humanity developed a decentralized civilization, unlike anything the galaxy had seen before, adaptable, resilient, and accelerating in capability with each passing year. The Coalition expected us to build a conventional interstellar empire, she explained to the assembled colony representatives via quantum conference. Centralized, hierarchical, with clear targets for retaliation. Instead, we've become something they can't effectively target, a distributed network with no single point of failure. On her screen, representatives from 37 colonies nodded in agreement, each colony specialized, yet connected to all others. Mining outposts in asteroid belts provided raw materials for manufacturing centers on terraformed worlds. Research stations in orbit around exotic stellar phenomena developed new technologies that were instantly shared across all colonies. Coalition analysts noted with growing alarm that humans didn't just copy technology, they improved it, combined it in ways its original creators never considered, and shared these innovations instantly across all colonies through their quantum communication network. In a devastating symbolic victory, human forces reclaimed Earth's moon, establishing a base from which they launched precision strikes against occupation forces on Earth itself. The Coalition garrison on the lunar surface had been defeated not by superior numbers or firepower, but by tactics they couldn't anticipate. Human forces attacking from inside the base, using access codes that should have been impossible to obtain. As Admiral Chen walked through the recaptured Lunar Command Center, he paused at a viewport overlooking Earth, scared but never broken. He activated his quantum communicator, connecting instantly to Dr. Reyes across the stars. Luna is secure, he reported. Operation Homecoming can proceed. It's time to take back Earth. Not just take it back, Rise replied, her voice calm but resolute. It's time to show the coalition that humanity isn't just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting for a new kind of future, not just for ourselves, but for every species they've tried to silence. A decade after the first Murian ship entered Earth's solar system, the galactic landscape had transformed. The once mighty coalition of evolved species had fractured, with many members seeking separate peace agreements with human colonies. Earth remained scared, but had become a symbol rather than a homeworld, a reminder of humanity's origins and its resolve. High Commander Vrax stood before the remnants of the Coalition Council, his crystalline body dulled by stress. The Nzari have signed a non-aggression pact with the human colonies in the Orient sector. They are the fifth founding species to break from our consensus. Around the chamber, the remaining representatives absorbed this latest defection in grim silence. The coalition that had ruled unchallenged for millennia was unraveling, its authority diminished with each passing cycle. We should sue for peace while we still have leverage, suggested a junior Keldrath diplomat. Leverage? Xerix laughed bitterly. What leverage? Our fleets are stretched thin defending our core systems. Their hybrid ships outmaneuver our best vessels. Their quantum communication network coordinates strikes faster than we can respond. Earth itself had been partially reclaimed. Coalition forces still held some territories, but Operation Homecoming had succeeded in liberating major regions. More significant than the military victory was the symbolic power. The species that had been marked for silencing had not only survived but returned. Humanity had not simply endured, it had undergone a transformation unlike any species before it. Hundreds of colonies dotted the galaxy, each developing unique specializations while maintaining a unified cultural identity. Their ships no longer fled from coalition forces, but engaged from positions of strength, offering alliance to those who would join them and swift destruction to those who wouldn't. The final irony came when the Murians, architects of the original silencing campaign, found themselves isolated as former coalition allies established trade and cultural exchanges with human colonies. Commander Xerix, now aged and diminished, was brought before a human diplomatic delegation led by Dr. Reyes and Admiral Chen. The meeting took place in the reclaimed lunar base, Earth visible through the viewport, its scarred surface already showing signs of recovery. Terraforming technology developed in distant colonies was being applied to heal the wounds of war. You came to silence Earth, Chen observed as they sat in the conference room, once used by coalition commanders. You succeeded, in a way. Our homeworld is quieter now, but humanity's voice echoes across the stars. Xerix studied the humans with all four of his eyes. A decade ago, he had dismissed them as primitive mammals. Now he saw something else, a species that had used catastrophe as a catalyst for explosive growth. We underestimated you, he admitted. We thought you were just another noisy civilization needing to be contained. We never imagined that we would thrive on chaos, Wright suggested. That we would turn exile into opportunity. That we would convert your attempt to silence us into a galaxy-wide chorus. We're still on the run, she added with a smile that carried no malice, only determined purpose. Not from you, but towards something greater. We always were. The human delegation offered terms not of surrender but of integration. The Murians could join the growing network of civilizations that humanity was connecting, species that had previously been isolated by coalition policy or technology. As Xerix departed, he received a final transmission. Coordinates for a neutral meeting ground where the Murians could begin their transition from conquerors to partners. The message was signed with a phrase that had become humanity's unofficial motto across the stars. Keep running. Keep evolving. Never be silenced. In observatories across the galaxy, scientists of a dozen species tracked the movements of human ships as they continued to expand outward. They weren't fleeing anymore. They were exploring, connecting, building something new. The species that had been marked for silence had found its voice, and the galaxy would never be the same.